Hey, look YouTube, welcome back to a new video with Rams fan YT. And today we are looking at nicknames. The particular ones we're looking at is the National League and the National League North and South. So tiers 5 and 6, or steps 1 and 2, depending on what entirely you use. There are some interesting ones in here. Harder to find the information, so some of them may be quite quick. I do apologise if that is the case, but obviously can't be helped if there's not much information online. So let's start with Aldershot Town. Well, they are nicknamed the Shots. Well, simply a shortened version of a town they come from of Aldershot, and the word shot actually comes from holt, which is an Old English word meaning a copse, which means a small group of trees. So they should be technically nicknamed a small group of trees, but that doesn't roll off the tongue really, does it? Altrincham, the Robins, comes from a red colour of their kit. Talked plenty of times before about why teams are nicknamed the Robins. Go and look at the previous videos if you want to find out more about why clubs are nicknamed the Robins so much. Barnet the Bees. Well, during the 30s, Barnet began to dominate the local amateur scene. The team were wearing the now moderately famous amber and black stripes, which therefore led to them being nicknamed the Bees because of the colours. Boreham Wood, the Wood. At the 1947 AGM of the Boreham Rovers Football Club, it was decided to drop the word Rovers and use the word Wood, before somebody else decided to take the name of the town, Boreham Wood. Bromley, the Lily Whites. And Bromley are known as the Lily Whites due to the colour of their home shirts. I mean, this is the case with most of them, unfortunately, in the National League. Chesterfield, the Spirites. Chesterfield Football Club and their fans are nicknamed the Spirites. They are called so because of the outstanding architectural imperfection that adorns a church in the centre of the town, the crooked spire. In fact, I'm going there, I'm pretty certain, on maybe Tuesday. It is very much Derbyshire's answer to the Leaning Tower of Pisa, and I do advise anybody who is visiting Derbyshire to go and visit the church. It is quite a unique spectacle. I've been up the spire myself, and it was quite creepy, to say the least. Dagenham and Redbridge, the Daggers. It's a wordplay on Dagenham, and Dagenham meant in Old English home of a man named Dieka. So there you go. Dover Athletic, the Whites. Well, the team usually wear white shirts and consequently nicknamed the Whites. But I have a theory that they wear the white kits. Cliffs of Dover, very famous landmark, of course. Eastleigh, the Spitfires. Well, I find this one of the most interesting one because when I think of Eastleigh, it doesn't instantly trigger Spitfires in my head. Well, you see, Eastleigh adopted their Spitfires moniker after consultation with supporters during a close season 2005. Southampton International Airport, previously known as Eastleigh Airport, assembly of a Supermarine type F-37/34 Spitfire once the aircraft had been built in nearby Woolston. The F-37/34's maiden flight, piloted by Mutt Summers and watched by designer R.G. Mitchell, took place at Eastleigh Airport on the 5th of March 1936. And I think it's the first ever Spitfire. So, there you go. FC Halifax Town, the Shaman. They found their present home, the Shay, in 1921. This was the original club, obviously, of Halifax Town, not the Phoenix Club, on a site of a former rubbish dump. And the ground's name gave them their nickname, the Shaman. Also a nickname on, I think it's like a sort of healer sort of thing in a indigenous tribe. But I don't think that is quite why they nicknamed it. Grimsby Town, the Mariners. The club was founded in 1878 in North Lincolnshire and were known as being the Fishermen, but in recent times they've been dubbed the Mariners. Grimsby is a leading base for the North Sea trawling, which again is represented by the club's crest. And the Mariners is a link to this fishing trade, and I would advise having fish and chips if you're in Grimsby. I am going to be in Grimsby this week coming up as well. I'm going from up to Chesterfield, through to Hull, and then staying at Grimsby for another day as well. So it'll be quite interesting to go and see that sort of area. So that is my bank holiday planned out, basically. King's Lynn Town, the Linnets. Well, the nickname the Linnets seems to have been around for some time. Evidence that the club was once known as the Shrimpers, as suggested in a 1968 handbook, is not forthcoming, and newspaper reports from 1892 used the nickname the Linnets in like the way they spell King Lynn. And it's probable that the Linnets actually came from this sort of a wordplay of King's Lynn. The earliest use of the term limit that has been noted so far is on the 29th of December 1902 in the Eastern Daily Press. Maidenhead United, the Magpies. It comes from the colour of the kit of black and white. However, stripes didn't come about until the 1990s, when they had before was a white shirt and black shorts. Notts County also nicknamed the Magpies. Well, Notts actually started with an amber and black striped shirt and black shorts in 1862. They then switched to a cricket-inspired chocolate and Cambridge Blues halves and white shorts in 1880, and the now familiar strip of black and white stripes, which led to the nickname Magpies, followed in 1890. This actually famous striped shirt inspired Italian giant Juventus to start wearing a similar strip at the turn of the 20th century. Little known fact for you there. Solihull Moors are nicknamed the Moors. You see, Solihull Moors is a merger between the former Solihull Borough and Moor Green football clubs. Moor Green was formed in 1901, and the first ground was on a part of a farm in Moor Green Lane in Mossley. Their ancestral home at the Moorlands was acquired in 1930 and was situated in Hall Green, which is actually a suburb of South Birmingham. The 2003-04 season was a momentous one for Moors, gaining a place in the newly formed Nationwide Conference North. However, the inaugural season was to prove a traumatic one, with the devastation caused by two arson attacks at the Moorlands in January 2005, when the main stand and clubhouse were gutted, leaving the club homeless. Moors first became tenants of Solihull Borough at Damson Park, and this eventually led to a merger occurring. Southend United, the Shrimpers. Southend are known as the Shrimpers as a reference to the area's maritime industry, included as well in one quarters of the club's badge. Stockport County, the Hatters. The club adopted the Hatters as their nickname, owing to Stockport's history as the centre of the Victorian hat-making industry. You know, the sort of famous Abraham Lincoln sort of hat you used to have. A nickname that is actually shared with Luton Town, although they had more straw Dutch sort of looking hats, which imagine like the Mallory Towers TV show, if you've ever watched that, then sort of things. Torquay United, the Gulls. From 1922 to 1954, the club played in a black and white strip and were nicknamed the Magpies. But the change now to the now familiar yellow and navy kit began when United's longest-serving manager, Eric Webber, who was manager from 1951 to 65, chose Torquay United's gold and blue shirts to represent the golden sands and the blue sea and sky of the English Riviera, which in the late 1960s led to the team becoming known as the Gulls. Celebrating 50 years as a league club in 1977, Gulliver the Gull, later renamed Gilbert, was chosen as a fitting mascot for a club in a top holiday resort. Wealdstone, the Stones. This is obviously a shortened version of Wealdstone, the Middlesex village where they originally played. The village was actually named after the Weald Stone, which is the Sarsen stone, which marks the boundary between Harrow and Harrow Weald, the two separate sort of boroughs, if you want to. I think that was what it was. So that, and you can actually still see that. I think it's outside of a pub. Weymouth the Terrors. The nickname the Terrors due to their terracotta strip, sort of brownish colour of the original kit. Woking the Cardinals. In the early years, Woking Football Club were known as the Cards, from the cardinal red of the red and white halves. So if a cardinal is like a papal helper, and they wear this sort of like splendid red sort of thing, and I don't know what you'd call it, a robe sort of thing, and that was the colour which Woking wore. So yeah. Wrexham the Dragons. The nickname of Dragons was introduced in 2001-2 by the commercial manager, following a ballot of fans to help increase sponsorship and promote the club's Welsh image, whilst also providing a more original nickname as Bristol City, Swindon Town, and Cheltenham Town. And as we found out earlier today, why have I forgotten it now? Also used the nickname Yeovil Town, the Glovers. The club's nickname is the Glovers because it's a reference to the history of glove making in the town of Yeovil, which became a centre of the industry during the 18th and 19th centuries. AFC filed the Coasters. Because of the name of the club derives from the filed coast, which is the coastline that both Blackpool and Fleetwood sit, even though the club itself isn't actually on the coast, it's in a village slightly inland, but whatever. AFC Telford United, the Bucks. Well, this is because they play at the new Buckhead. And before that, the original club of Telford United played at the Buckshead, which makes me think it has something to do with the pub owning the land they played on. But that is just my theory. If that's incorrect, or if it is correct and you're a Telford fan, please let me know in the comment section down below. Aldershot Town, the Reds, because they play in red. I mean, it's the most boring nickname of all time. Bath City, the Romans. The city gets its name from the famous Roman baths in the town, you see. And the Romans built the baths as part of a spa in the year 43 BC. They called it Aquae Sulis, which means the waters of Sulis, with Sulis being a local goddess. And because obviously the Romans had huge influence in the creating of the city, the football club decided to take the nickname from it. Billericay Town, the Blues, because they play in blue. I mean, that's also an unoriginal nickname, to say the least. Blythe Spartans, the Spartans. They were founded in September 1899 by Fred Stoker, who was the club's first secretary before forming a practice as a distinguished physician in London's Harley Street. He thought it appropriate to name the team after the Greek Spartan army in the hope that the players would give their all as they went into battle on the field of play. Boston United, the Pilgrims. In about 1969, Boston United decided they had something a bit more exciting than the United tag, so they decided to call themselves the Pilgrims. The main reason was that Boston has a connection with the Pilgrim Fathers. A memorial to in their tribute was erected in 1957, and is to be found about 4 miles out of Boston at Scotia Creek in Fishtoft. I think that is the American one. Although also the town or major city of Boston in America, which everybody knows about, was also, I think, named after this town. It marks the place where in 1607 a group of Puritans, who would become known as the Pilgrim Fathers, were arrested attempting to flee to the religious freedom of the Low Countries. The ringleaders were subsequently tried and imprisoned in the town's Guildhall and eventually allowed to leave. They settled in Holland before travelling on to the New World. Only that Scotia Creek place is in the UK. It just doesn't sound particularly British. Yeah. The only other nickname for the club was the Stumpites, which was briefly used back in the 1940s. The Stump, you see, is the local name for the main church in Boston of St. Botolph's, which is the largest parish church in England, with a tower that is 272 feet high. Brackley Town, the Saints. Although I can't find out the reason online, I assume it is due to maybe the being formed by a church in Brackley. If any fans can help me out with this one, I'd be hugely appreciated. I'm at a stump, to excuse the pun, of the previous Boston United club. Bradford Park Avenue, a nickname Park Avenue. Its name, you see, is derived from the former home of Park Avenue, which was used to avoid confusion with Bradford City. But the club is traditionally known locally simply as Bradford, though this can cause confusion as much of the media erroneously called it Bradford City. They just called it Bradford. I mean, I've fallen into that trap myself. Braintree Town of the Iron. The club was formed in 1898 as Manor Works FC, a works team of a Crittall Window Company, who were suppliers, you see, to the Titanic, and once the leading window makers in the UK. The club's nickname of the Iron therefore comes from the source, and this is why a factory is in the crest. Basically, the iron used on Titanic came from Braintree. Although I don't think that's really something to celebrate, but you never know. Chelmsford City, the Clarets. They play in Claret, like Burnley or Aston Villa. I mean, couldn't be any simpler. Chester, the Seals. Well, Chester Football Club have been known as the Seals after the former club's ground of Sealand Road, as in sea land, not seal land. But they just changed it to seal. Chipping Town are known as the Bluebirds due to the blue nature of their kit. Chorley, the Magpies. They have been known as the Magpies since the 1890s because of their distinctive black and white striped shirts. Concord Rangers, the Beach Boys. Concord Rangers, you see, began life as a team of boys headed by Steve Lant, playing friendly matches during 1966 on a pitch along the Canvey Island seafront, close to the Concord beach. Hence the name Concord Rangers and the nickname the Beach Boys. And they're also, I'm pretty certain, the only club in the entire world actually nicknamed after a beach. Or not nicknamed, like actually named. Curzon Ashton, the Nash. You see, they played at the National Park, former home of pre-war club Ashton National. From this, they acquired the name of the Nash. Darlington, the Quakers. The club is known as the Quakers because of the contributions made to the town by men such as Edward and Joseph Pease, who were members of a religious society of friends. Dartford, the Darts. It's a shortened version of Dartford, which means actually ford over the River Darrant, but gets itself its name from a Celtic phrase, stream where oak trees grow. They were original, trust me. Dorking Wanderers. You see, the club initially played at Big Field, Brockham, before moving to the West Humble playing fields on London Road in 2007. In July 2018, the club relocated to a refurbished Meadowbank ground, which had previously been home to Dorking Football Club prior to their disbanding. Hence, the wandering around of stadiums gave birth to Wanderers. Dulwich Hamlet, the Hamlet. When the club was formed in Dulwich, it was the place of Dulwich was just a hamlet in Middlesex, where the current Dulwich village, the quite posh area, now is. Eastbourne Borough, the Sports. They are known as the Sports after their previous name as Langney Sports. Ebbsfleet United, the Fleet. Ebbsfleet United is the latest name, you see, for Gravesend and Northfleet, which was formed in 1946 following the Second World War. The club was formed after a merger between Gravesend United, which were originally formed in 1893, and Northfleet United, who were originally formed in 1890, and they took on the nickname from Northfleet United of Fleet. Although you could also say it is to do with fleet history being in the area, as in naval fleet. They are, I think a navy base was there at one point. Farsley Celtic, the Celt Army. Originally used because of the colours and their resemblance to the Scottish club, but now it has taken on a new meaning of how they see themselves. They see themselves as a tight group, all fighting for the same thing, the ultimate success of the club, like an army. They stand shoulder to shoulder with their fans and their community, and they will support them regardless of any external and surrounding issues, as they've repeatedly proven that it will do the same for Farsley. Even the stadium name of the Citadel is akin to the nickname. Although, to be fair, I did get all that information from Farsley Celtic's page or website, so it is a bit biased. Gateshead the Tynesiders, because they are located next to the River Tyne, which actually means river in a pre-Celtic language, sometime in the Bronze Age, maybe it's been known as that. Gloucester City the Tigers. They've been known as the Tigers since the 1980s, when a tie-in with Westbury Homes saw the club change from traditional red colours to yellow and black, but the club are now back to red since 2019. So you do imagine the Tigers nickname will change as well, because that's no longer on their crest even. Guiseley the Lions. Well, I assume it was the idea of the owner or the manager that the team should fight like lions on the pitch. I don't know this as a fact. If you are a Guiseley fan, can you let me know if I'm correct or not? Hampton and Richmond Borough, the Beavers. The club is nicknamed the Beavers, and there is some debate as to its origins. The ground is known as Beverley, after the nearby house from whose ground it was originally part of, and it lies adjacent to Beaver Close, which would seem to suggest as it to where the tag originates, although Beaver Close was built after the ground was. So maybe Beaver Close got its name from the ground and thus the nickname. Havant to Waterlooville the Hawks. It comes from the original nickname of Havant Town, but no record seems to exist whether it of what it actually was a reference to. But I would assume that it is a word play on the word Havant. Hemel Hempstead Town, the Tudors. The link between King Henry VIII and their town is his granting of a charter of incorporation to Hemel Hempstead on the 29th of December 1539. Previously, local people had to use the markets of Berkhamsted or St Albans, but King Henry VIII's charter gave Hemel a weekly Thursday market of its own, together with the right to hold a court of pie powder. This was because of the corruption of the French pieds bourrés, meaning dusty feet, which any visiting traders could be tried and punished, or disputes settled before the dust of the town was off their feet. The market brought prosperity, you see, to Hemel, which was previously mainly an agricultural area, and it is reported that King Henry VIII courted Anne Boleyn in Gadebridge Park when he stayed locally to hunt on the Ashridge estate. So there is a lot of link to the Tudors with Hemel Hempstead itself as a town, so the nickname pays tribute to that. Hereford the Bulls. Well, they are nicknamed the Bulls after the Hereford cattle breed. Very famous cattle breed they are. The sort of brown ones with white faces. Oh, you know the ones. Hungerford Town the Crusaders. I have no clue. I could not find a single thing on the internet about this. It may be that the owner at the time thought that his players should battle like crusaders on the pitch, but this is my theory and may not be true. So if you are a Hungerford fan, let me know in the comment section below. Kettering Town, the Poppies. They are nicknamed the Poppies from their red strip of their home kit. Kidderminster Harriers. The Harriers name still pays homage to the club's early years in athletics and rugby, before football as we know it began in 1886, with the birth of a club that still does it proud. You see, I always think of them a bit more like, in terms of name and badge, a bit more like an American football one. Like, don't take this personally, but I think Harriers in the name, we're not really a fan of the badge, is a bit American-esque as well. Do something about it if the owners are listening. Leamington, the Brakes. The club was established in 1933 as the works team of Lockheed, Borg and Beck, gaining the nickname the Brakes as a result of the products manufactured by the company. Maidstone United, the Stones. This is from the town of Maidstone, which was shortened to Stone, which potentially refers to a megalith around which gatherings took place back in the day and is still actually present, I think, in the outskirts of the town. Oxford City, the Hoops. It's due to it consisting of blue and white hoops, just like QPR's. Slough Town, the Rebels. Well, during the war, Slough Football Club were unable to use their ground, and this led to a merger with Slough Centre Football Club in 1943. The new club was called Slough United. The new club did not want to return to the Spartan League after the war, and instead became founding members of the new Corinthian League, a move which led to their being nicknamed the Rebels. Southport, the Sandgrounders. The Sandgrounders is a historical name applied to anybody born in Southport, because the town is built almost entirely on sand, or maybe entirely. In point of fact, this nickname is seldom used at matches, though. The more usual rally cry has always been, "Come on the port," because of, like, the sort of the Southport, obviously. Spennymoor Town, the Moors. The name is probably derived from the Old English or Old Norse spenning and moor, meaning a moor with a fence or enclosure. And so the name of the town gave it to the football club, and that's why I call them Moors. St Albans City, the Saints. St Albans itself takes its name from the first British saint of Alban. The most elaborate version of this story in Bede's Ecclesiastical History of the English People relates that he lived in Verulamium sometime during the 3rd or 4th century, when Christians were suffering persecution. Alban met a Christian priest, you see, fleeing from his persecutors, and sheltered him in his house, where he became so impressed with the priest's piety that he converted to Christianity. When the authorities searched Alban's house, he put on the priest's cloak and presented in place of his guest. Consequently, he was sentenced to endure the punishments that were to be inflicted upon the priest, unless he renounced Christianity. Alban refused and was taken for execution. In later legends, his head rolled downhill after the execution, and a well sprang up where it stopped. And that is why they are named saints after a particular saint. Tunbridge Angels, the Angels. Religious connotation to the other, Tunbridge Football Club were formed in October 1947 following a suggestion of local businessman and founder chairman Mr. Herbert Porch, and were one of the 4 clubs to be elected to the Southern League for the 1948-49 season. Jock Danoon, a former Chelsea player, was the club's first manager. But ignoring all of that, why were they called the Angels? Well, the club took out a lease on the Angel Ground, formerly the home of Kent County Cricket Club, and named after the nearby pub The Angel. Hence, Tunbridge SE became known as the Angels. The very little relevance to the holy version of Angels, like the actual Saints was. Welling United, the Wings. There was a programme called Winger for the 1983 season, with no badge and the Wings nickname on it, and there was a competition to find out in the early 80s. The theory is that there was some form of competition held by the then supporters club, with a nickname being agreed, and somehow the Pegasus was added, or replaced the Invita horse at a later date to represent the Wings. We all know the Invita horse, it's on the Gillingham Football Club has it, and it's the rampant white horse of Kent, because I think Welling used to be in Kent. Finally, York City, the Minster Men. York are nicknamed the Minster Men not the Mister Men, in reference to York Minster. It is believed to have been coined by a journalist who came to watch the team during a successful cup run, and was only first used officially in literature in 1972. Before this, York were known as the Robins because of the team's red shirts. But they were once billed as the Happy Wanderers after a popular song at the time of their run in the 1954-55 FA Cup. Thank you very much for watching this video. Please subscribe if you're new around here. Hugely appreciate it, as always. And that goes to all 62 already subscribed to the channel. And Monday, obviously, no video, bank holiday, having a bit of a time off myself from YouTube. On Friday, I will be doing your Premier League club's best academy product of all time. Well, ish. slight technicality. You have to be alive. I've set myself up because otherwise you could have literally anyone. But goodbye for now.